Hi guys. So I'm not only a gun nerd or a shooting enthusiast and a hunter and a collector. I'm also a complete IT nerd, which means I have some insight into how things work when it comes to what is happening today, January 2021. So I thought I was going to make a video about basically online prepping or cybersecurity prepping or stuff like that, and try to explain what is happening and like a historical viewpoint on that. Let's start with that, talk a bit about online prepping, and then how the situation is in Sweden and how it's developing in Sweden. So yeah, what happened is back in the day, internet was invented and no one really understood what would happen with the internet. In the early 2000s, let's call it the glory days of the internet, it was a free place where you could speak your mind. There was, in the 90s as well, it was things like 4chan and Reddit and stuff like that. It existed, but it didn't exist in the way it exists now. It was decentralized. Everything was decentralized. That was the thing about the internet. It was decentralized. It's the whole thought behind the internet. It's a network that you can't just put a bomb in one place and it will go down. So it's the entire concept of internet is decentralized network infrastructure and decentralized information and all that. What happened was in the 2010s or around that time, perhaps a bit earlier as well, everything started to get centralized. So the whole cloud computing reform, which Google has been leading and is leading, and same with Amazon Web Services, AWS, and Microsoft to some extent, what they are doing is centralizing your information. So the cloud is only someone else's computer. So instead of everyone having their own server room in their company or hosting your own shit, so I have a cupboard over there where I host hagebanke.se. So instead of everyone hosting their own shit and having a decentralized network, people put their stuff in Amazon Web Services, for example, or get a Google suite and put everything in there. Get big data centers and collect all the information. So at the moment, it's about 3 big service providers when it comes to server storage and data storage and all that. Microsoft, Google, Amazon. There's others, of course. But these 3 companies all share the same values. They share the same... the same people hold the puppet strings to these companies. And they're not your friends. And that's become more and more clear. So what's been happening is governments all over the Western world are not controlled by the politicians as much as they're controlled by activists who work in the government, and those people are not changed between governments. Politicians are usually idiots, and they usually nowadays are a political class, an elite that wants the money. So it's basically corruption all the way down. That's the way I view it anyway. So they have experts, and those experts have become more and more woke, all of them. I'm not sure if it's actually today it is a big conspiracy, but it's not even a secret one. What's that? I don't remember the name of that famous person in the United States who got memed when he said the frogs are turning gay. Anyway, all platforms closed him down at the same time, at the same day. And I think the whole thing started, them working together and planning for this day. That started back in 2010 when there was a big WikiLeaks. And all the banks closed WikiLeaks accounts. And WikiLeaks was an unperson, as it would be called in 1984. That was probably the first unperson, digital unperson. Now everyone is that has the wrong views is a digital unperson. So if you're on Facebook, Twitter, all the famous big social media sites, and you say the wrong things, doesn't even have to be incorrect. It can just be the wrong things at this point. So these things start as a snowball rolling down the hill, getting bigger and bigger, or it's a slippery slope, as it might be called. Usually that's a logical fallacy. One thing happening doesn't automatically correlate with the next thing happening. But this is not the case when it comes to this situation. So they started small, picking the low-hanging fruit, the people who's been labeled in the... So they collaborate with the regular old media, because the new social media platforms and the people being able to control their own information and all that, and control the sources of information, that's a direct threat to old media. And this is all a threat to the people in power. So they need to control this. So this is a plan long time in the running to basically go for the power grab when they believe no one will stand up for themselves and complain. And this is what happened when Trump supporters stormed the Capitol. Then they started to yell, oh, this is a big, this is a burning Reichstag, this is the big power grab from Trump. No, it isn't. Well, what has been happening is we have had almost a year of left-wing terrorism in the United States and other places in the world. For example, when Trump was inaugurated in January 2017, there were 200 arrests of Antifa. I don't know how many police officers injured, how many stores looted and burned. No one even mentions that anymore. No one mentions the 4-year conspiracy theory of Trump being somehow colluding with Russia and all that bullshit that they fed us for 4 years just to plan for this moment where they do the power grab. So this is a power grab. This is them crossing the Rubicon. What's happened is that they banned Trump from all the social media platforms. That's not the scary part for me. For me, the scary part is we have alternatives. And what would have happened in a natural situation is that when they do this, we can move to the next platform, like Parler. Parler is the platform people have been moving to. And apparently Trump did that as well. I'm not sure. I don't really give a shit about Trump that much. But what's happening now is that Amazon Web Services that hosts Parler servers will kick Parler out from their servers. Just like that. We can no longer use the infrastructure everyone uses on the net to host our own servers, to have freedom of speech. So, if you, for example, like me, enjoy the shooting sports, which is politically incorrect according to these people, then you are persona non grata on all social media platforms. Sooner or later, I'm going to get kicked out of YouTube. Sooner or later, I'm going to get kicked out of Facebook and wherever I exist. Like, I have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, and of course my YouTube channel. So sooner or later, I'm going to get kicked out of all of those. And you would be stupid if you believe this is the end of the slippery slope. Because in America right now, the Democrats are talking about creating lists of people that have collaborated with Trump. They're trying to do the same thing as what happened in Turkey when they had a military coup. So yeah, that was a bit more dramatic with actual firearms being fired off with military hardware. And then Erdogan used that as an excuse to implement a total Islamic tyranny. And this is the light version of that, I guess, but on a much larger scale, impacting the entire world. So yeah, this will reflect in whichever country you live in the West, this will reflect what's going to happen in your country as well. So I don't know what the solution is to this on the macro scale of things. Like, do we build our own internet from the ground up? Do we have to divide our societies totally with our own culture, comedians, newspapers, everything? I mean, that's basically what they're telling us to do, in the United States at least. That is scary, because it won't happen. What will happen is a civil war. The United States will dissolve like Texas will secede, stuff like that will happen before we build an entire new infrastructure. Because they will close down the power to you, they will close down your bank accounts, they will close down everything if you are an unperson. And you all know what's the next step behind making someone an unperson, because that's the way the Nazis viewed the Jews in the Second World War. They made them unpersons. They were not allowed to carry a job. They weren't allowed to do anything. They couldn't own firearms. Then they put them in gas chambers. And that's what happens. When you dehumanize someone, like the left is doing with anyone who doesn't hold their fucked up beliefs, then you dehumanize them. And that's why you see things like punch a Nazi or stuff like that. They dehumanize people. These are totalitarian, basically as close to fascist as you will come according to any definition that is in use right now. And they're projecting their own bullshit on their political enemies, and they don't even see it themselves. I have friends who believe they are like virtuous, and they spout this bullshit. Yeah. So this is only going to get worse. This is the turning point to where it really starts to accelerate, and it's only going to get worse. And how can we prepare for this? Okay, so the first tip is for the general person who isn't like a culture warrior type of person who just want to live in peace. So let's take a note from what happened in the Soviet Union. So you stay quiet. You self-censor yourself. So if you want to keep your place of employment, you want to keep your friends, you want to have some semblance of normalcy, you keep quiet. You self-censor, you do not say what you want to say, specifically not online, because your mobile phone is keeping track of you, where you are, what you say, it's listening to you all the time. You can't have privacy if you have a mobile phone close or in the same room. Same with a computer if it has a microphone in it. They control everything. They have backdoors into every chip and every router and everything. They know, if they want to, they can see exactly what you do meta-analysis of all your friends and who you contact, how long you talk. Even if they don't see what you say in clear text, they can map your entire life and put you in a register. So after minding what you say, mind who you talk to or who you are close to, physically close to, because they can map that as well, and they will. So that's how the social score system works in China, by the way. If you are spending time with a person with a much lower social score than you, then your social score lowers as well, and then you will have you might not be allowed to travel, you might not be allowed to take a bank loan, your kids will not get into that good school, stuff like that. So they will control everything you do this way. So Google cooperates with the dictatorship in China, and together they put together artificial intelligences that monitor people. So this is just the start. I'm telling you where it's heading, and this is coming to every society you live in. Doesn't matter which country you're in. It's only the timetable might be different. So yeah, that's what the general person will do. And if you actually have a hobby like me, where I'm a sports shooter, where the slightest wrong word I say that by some madman can be twisted into something like, oh, you threatened someone or whatever, even if I never ever would do that, of course. If they're out to get you, they can, and this has happened in Sweden. So if they're out to get you because you have the wrong political beliefs, they will wiretap you, they will put in Trojans in your computer and in your phone so they can see everything. Even if you use Signal, the most secure app right now for messaging, they can put a virus in your phone so they can see everything in clear text anyway. So there is no real protection if the government is out to get you. So they can twist your words. So what do you do? How can you protect yourself against that? Well, if you have something secret to talk about, stand naked inside of a forest 100 meters from any electrical device That's the foolproof solution, and then whisper to each other. But in practical terms, what I've been doing when I do stuff online, I do it out of habit, not because I have anything to hide, but I believe in privacy and integrity. So I do it out of habit. So what I do is, of course I use Signal for any kind of communication, even if it's just to say hello, how are you to someone. And on the computer, I use a VPN. The VPN will protect the communication from your computer to the internet. So the exit point, it will basically skip through your internet service provider. So in the European Union, the internet service provider is by law required to store logs that says which site you go to and what you do if you download shit and whatever. So the VPN, which you should always have on, whatever you do, always have it on. Basically, your exit point is beyond the internet service provider, so they won't have any logs. And make sure the VPN provider is trustworthy and doesn't keep any logs. So be careful which one you choose. And you need to encrypt your hard drives. So there's different solutions. I used to use someone called VeraCrypt, but I believe that's discontinued. I don't remember the name, but there is an inbuilt one in Windows that's called BitLocker. I wouldn't trust BitLocker. I would never trust BitLocker because there is an easy way to access the encryption key in the operating system, and it's usually stored online as well for backup purposes. So if the police wants to come into what's the name? The Microsoft solution, it can. And in Windows, there's 1,000 different logs that says everything you ever do on the computer, and that's usually sent to Microsoft as well. So if you're worried about that aspect of it, never use Microsoft products, basically. So talking about that, the other option is Linux. So there's very user-friendly versions of Linux. So Google that, like Ubuntu or something. And that has built-in encryption as well, so you don't have to think about that. And put in a hardware lock on your motherboard if you can. Put in a password for that. That's a little layer of protection, so you can't even start the computer without the correct password. And also what I do, this is a bit super paranoid, but what I do is I have a hypervisor, which is a program that can run simulations of computers. So I have a simulated computer that's run on my server, which I can do stuff on. I usually do it to mess around with testing because I work with these things. But what you could do is have an encrypted virtual computer, and then when you're done with it, just delete it and make another one. That way you won't have logs of any kind. And always make sure it runs through an encrypted VPN channel. You can do that if you're really paranoid. I do it for testing purposes, to test different things. And when I mess up, I can just delete it. It's very convenient. But generally, if a government wants to spy on you, you're fucked. So have that in mind. So the best course of action is to just stay quiet and try to keep under the radar, which means I'm fucked because I have my YouTube channel and many people know about me. So I'm just waiting for the axe to fall down myself. They'll make some shit up. Maybe not this year or in 5 years, but sooner or later I'm going to become an unperson. That's the way everything is heading. And it's going to be more and more and more extreme because the people who want to control you, they don't have a limit. They don't really have a goal for the control. So even the most minuscule details will be controlled. And an easy example to make is, the LGBTQ plus thing, and they keep adding letters. It's because they don't have an end goal in mind. They just want people who behave like this, they only want more control, and then it becomes like a competition for them. So they just invent bullshit to pile up on all the other bullshits. And the scary thing about that is the revolution eats its own children, is a famous saying. And that's true in this as well. There is no way to appease this crowd of people because they're just gonna keep putting up more bullshit on the pile. And that's the same with gun laws, for example. The people who are against civilian ownership of firearms, they don't want you to own any firearms, so any law they make is just a stepping stone until the next law and the next law and the next law, until they can do a big gun grab and grab all your shit. So this fight, and the fight for gun laws, and every fight like this for your rights, is a never-ending fight. And now it's really close in the United States to coming to a shooting war, because this is a big step. This is crossing the Rubicon. This is the point of no return, because they show their cards now. This is what they're going to do to us all who doesn't... and it doesn't really matter, because this isn't about the woke assholes either. It is about control and totalitarian thoughts. So the people who instigate this shit right now, they will, in a few years, they're the ones who's going to suffer, because they set the precedent now. So if for some reason in the next election there's a backlash and the Republicans get back in the office, what's to say they won't purge the leftists? It's probably going to happen sooner or later. Or the media assholes who owns all the infrastructure, they might get totally power hungry and grab more and more power to themselves, because all power wants more power, money wants more money, and they want it all to collect at the top. So like the end goal of unfettered capitalism is one person owning everything. And that's bullshit, of course. That would destroy the economy, so same as unfettered socialism will only ever lead to a totalitarian dystopia, dictatorships and shit. The same is true with capitalism as well, if it's unfettered. So everything has to be in balance, and it's not in balance right now. It is total bullshit right now. So what is happening in Sweden then? So they are at the moment, the current government has given themselves access to create any law regarding COVID, and they're starting to make bullshit laws. And the opposition doesn't give a shit, because they can just point at the government and say, oh, it was them who did it. But it was you, the opposition, who let them do it. So I'm not forgiving them for anything they start making up. They could tomorrow make a law that says I have to confiscate all guns in Sweden because COVID or whatever, because terrorism or whatever. And they would be able to do it without any democracy or anything, because it's a tiny percentage of it's a minority government right now. So who knows what will happen there? And they're making laws now that equals, like, if you shoot a wolf illegally in Sweden, that's pretty much equal punishment as if you is an IS terrorist or something, which means they can wiretap you, do anything. So if I was a hunter of wolves, it would be an interesting hunt, but I'm never ever touching that with a 10-foot pole, because then the environmentalists who have infiltrated the police and the attorneys and everything, they would crucify me. And this has happened, and it is happening right now. There is no justice for to be had in Sweden. Our justice system is ridiculous. So expect to get wiretapped if you're any kind of politically awkward for the ruling elite at the moment. Expect to get your bank accounts freezed. Expect to get fired from a job. Expect anything right now, because we'll see what happens. There is no personal integrity anymore. They want to control you into the minutest detail. They want to know everything you do, catalog you, put you on a list. And if they get to continue with this, ultimately murder you. That's the end of this shit. Always in history anyway. So yeah, we're heading to dystopia. That's a good start of 2021. But I never thought 2020 was the end. That was just the start. It's only going to go downhill from here. So get ready, I guess. And yeah, as I said, the best solution is just to self-censor and stay quiet. And that's, I'm not that's on any kind of media. I'm not telling you to not speak to your friends or anything, but sooner or later, the traitors will come. The people who, if you remember East Germany, I think it was 1/3 of the population spied on the other 2/3 of the population. Children spying on their parents, shit like that. The Stasi was a horrible thing, but that shit will come as well, sooner or later. Right, I think I blackpilled you all long enough now, but now you know what's gonna happen and you heard it here first. Okay, I think I need a drink or something.